little bit overwhelming, really. And I've got a million things swirling around my mind that I'm going to say, and I've spoken to a few people already to say I'm meant to thank you, and sorry if I don't actually remember to do it. I did say to Rhonda, Simon, where are you?
Here. I'm with the family table.
Excellent. So today when Rhonda and I had lunch at the pub, and we were talking about how how this would go and who would speak first and what would happen, and I said I wanted to do the welcome and the thank you, and then a few other people are speaking, and then Rhonda will speak, and then I want to respond at the end. It's not a great look when you're sitting having lunch in the pub and the lady you're with is bawling her eyes out.
Your joke wasn't that funny, David.
Rhonda started crying this afternoon, and she's just shown me this this card, which somewhere here is Russell. And I met Russell in 1977 when I started teaching at Dramana. Think about that. So that means that's 45 years ago, and I'm actually going to a ceremony on Sunday to receive the certificate for 45 years. So it's just incredible. But Russell was a maths teacher when I was a maths teacher, and it turned out that Russell, Mark and I, who worked together back in 77 for a while till Russell left and went to another job, we all had our birthday on the same day. So we've caught up every year pretty much since then. So, and my twin sister probably somewhere. And Russell and I are all celebrating birthdays tomorrow. Yes. So this is and this is the card that Russell gave Rhonda tonight. So sorry you've lost your pet. The special bond you shared was priceless, but the wonderful memories you have are endless. And then Russell did say, as he was handing that over, you're not the person who lost their pet, are you? On the screen, except for a couple of tight asses, most of you contributed to that. So thank you for that. And I'm not sure Rhonda was going to mention this, but I'll steal her thunder to say that she found a house auction, a house in Toorak was being auctioned, all the contents were being auctioned. So a couple of Sundays ago, there was a day of watching a bunch of pieces of artwork that I bookmarked as being something I'd like to have. And we've got that one. And it's 2 metres by 1.5 metres, and so too big to transport here, but there's the photo of it on my lounge room wall already. So thank you for that. And it's in my lounge room next to my other beautiful piece of artwork, which is a picture of a big dog named Larry. And I said to the gallery owner, every time I look at that, I feel so happy I bought it, because I feel connected more to it than when I first bought it. It wasn't a mistake, I loved it. And I think this will be the same. This will remind me of you guys for a long time. So thank you. I'm going to talk for a bit, and I've written several versions of this and made lots of dot points. What would I want to say after 45 years in the department? And in a conversation with Steph recently with Cheryl Chappell, Steph, in her beautiful, intelligent, innocent way, said, how can 45 years of knowledge walk out the department's door and no one be worried about it? So that made me think, although maybe I could do a lecture on what I know. And Kira, I had that idea as Kira because Kira and I both went to Professor John Munro, some of you will know, Marie will know. When he left Melbourne Uni, he did a farewell lecture, and I thought, well, maybe I can do a farewell lecture. John Munro was my year 11 maths and science teacher. And so I suggested we could have this function in the Frankston Arts Centre and we could have a lecture theatre. And Ben said, you're not going to do that. There's no atmosphere there. You've got to be in a bar. So we're in a bar, and I've shrunk my speech down a fair bit. I have written some notes about my career as a teacher. I started in 1977 at Monterey Tech. Not many people know that. That was for a year. Went to Dramana Tech. I was there for 23 years. And then left Dromana to Caulfield Park, and then Caulfield Park to Carrum Downs to Oakwood School. So I have been so lucky and so privileged to work in amazing places and learn so much all the way along. And each step, it's hard to leave a place, but each step has been so positive for me. And thinking I was at Dromana for 23 years. Most people, when they get to the peninsula, don't leave. And my kids are here. And one of the reasons we left Dromana is because I know how isolated the kids in Dromana are. And I wanted them to be closer to the train line and closer to all those things that they could have in the city of Melbourne. So I'm going to take a sidetrack. Emily is living in Canberra. She's got a postdoc position, so she's Dr. Emily. She's working at ANU. She's an evolutionary biologist, and she can do mapping genomes, which I don't know what that means. But it turns out all the old professors can't do that either. So Emily is now world-renowned and been asked to speak all over the world about her work. Madeline, almost Dr. Madeline. Has it been submitted? And Maddie's husband Paddy. Maddie's a musician. They're both musicians, and Maddie would describe herself as a musician and academic. So Maddie's known for her writing as well as her performing. Of course, speaks French, has diploma from Melbourne Uni in French, as well as as well as about to be PhD in music history. Spent a lot of time in Paris doing research. And Lincoln, a doctor of nothing. And most of the people in the room have seen these kids when they were little, and people are surprised to see Lincoln 6'10". And no, he's not playing basketball, but I had him talking to Andrew a little bit before, because turns out Lincoln went through school, none of the teachers knew him. He did not connect with school learning at all, and what he had was friends, and he had all his friends around him. And turns out when you want to be a salesman, that's the skill you need to have. So now Lincoln's got a team under him, and he's got people from across Australia ringing to say, what's your team doing? Why are you getting such great figures? So you can tell I'm proud. Simon.
Are you proud of me too?
Prep to year 12 government school.
Yeah.
We're going on too long. So I want to talk about Dromana Tech. There's a couple of people here that worked at Dromana. It was a brilliant place to work. I stayed for 23 years. But on reflection, it was brilliant and brutal place to work. The kids were hard, but some of the staff back in those days, I'm thinking of the tradies, they were awful people. And when I was thinking this afternoon about what theme could I take through this, I think the theme is, what do I know about teachers, and what am I thinking about when I'm looking for a good teacher? And those tradies who were, I can remember Marg Bell, two people will know who Marg Bell is. She's passed away. She described them as, I get this right, repressed, angry men. And they were. And they took it out on the kids, and they took it out on each other. They hated people on the staff. They hated the humanities department. I was in the maths department with Russell and Anne. I was a science teacher in those days. And I guess we just sort of stood and watched this horrible dynamic happening in the school. Kids were hard. A lot of the teachers wouldn't get a job these days, absolutely for sure. They'd be struck off by VIT. And they're not people you'd want to spend any time with. And that's one of my criteria about employing you. And most of the people in the room I've employed. And they're people I want to spend time with. And I always quote John Holt, and a lot of you are too young to even have read about John Holt. But he said you want teachers who are interested and interesting. they're interested in teaching, they're interested in the kids, and they're interesting people. So those guys back then, they were horrible people. There were fights every day in the yard, there were fights in the staff room. And you'll think I'm joking, but there were fist fights in the staff room about stupid things. You know, we had discussions at staff meeting about whether you should be allowed to smoke in the staff room, whether you should be, and you were, and whether you should be allowed to smoke during meetings, during the staff meeting. That was a big discussion. There was no discussion. The boys had to wear long socks when they wore shorts because that was the rule, and it was a brutal place. The kids were hard. It was a tech school, but what that meant. Well, the tradies all belted the kids, literally belted the kids. And if you didn't do that, well, the story is, and I forget the name of the strap because the strap always had a name, but you could send a student to Ted Griffiths' office. He was a local councillor, and he had the strap. There was a borrowing fee. All the kids knew this. There's a borrowing fee. So the kid with the hand out, strapped by Ted, bring the strap back to the classroom, strapped by the teacher, back to Ted, a return fee, another strap on the hand. That was 1977, 78 at Dramana Tech. So if you weren't strapping the kids, you had to be good. So I reckon we were good. And how did we become good? We do so much PD now about how to be a good teacher. We didn't have any of that sort of stuff. If you were going to PD back in those days, if you were lucky, you'd go to the maths conference in December. But I was lucky, back to Russell again. Russell doesn't know. Russell was my model. Well, I go back a step. John Munro, who was my teacher, he was the person I always thought back to when I had to think about what being a teacher would be like. Someone who cared for the kids, loved their subject, science teacher, loved it to the nth degree, and had a relationship with the students, and we all loved him, of course. And then I saw Russell as a maths teacher, one of those rare maths teachers who loved their subject, and he showed that to the kids, and the kids loved him back in return. So when I started, I didn't have discipline in the first couple of years. Mark used to come to my class to help me because he had discipline at that stage. So when I see a new teacher who's struggling, I don't need that to be explained to me. I know what that feels like. And so how do we learn to be a good teacher? By meeting these people and watching them, teaching alongside them. That takes me to Doug Smith. We did an amazing program called Integrated Studies, and people from Carrum Downs will know about Connect. That's where Connect came from for me. So we had, this is in the 80s, a team of teachers would meet together, we'd plan together, so we'd have a maths, English, art, phys ed teacher planning, and we would be planning an integrated program for the kids. And Doug Smith, again, an idol to lots of people. I was teaching in a 5 mod, he was in the other classroom. I learned so much from Doug by teaching with him. And one of my favourite memories is we made hot air balloons. So beautiful big tissue hot air balloons, and we had a flight theme going on. So they were just magic days of teaching for me. I want to mention a few other people. I'll struggle with this. And Anne will know why. Skip the one I'm thinking about and go to Jane Scarlett. Jane's passed away. I worked with a lot of amazing wellbeing teachers, and I said to Jane one day, I can get the kids to tell me what's going on, but once they tell me that, what happens next? And she'd done a lot of training, and she just taught me a basic problem-solving technique of brainstorming, selecting, trialing, come back next week and talk about it. This is not what a vice principal was really meant to do. A vice principal was meant to strap the kids and send them away. But I was more interested in working through this and giving the students something to work on and come back and tell me how it went. The teachers always wanted me to change the kids, and I would have a conversation. There was boys back then. I'd say, this guy you're in trouble with has been teaching 25 years. What's the chance they can change? The kid would go, no, I don't think they're going to change. They're not going to change, so they're going to stay. What about you try something? And I'd give them a task to do. I'd say, go and try and do this and see if he reacts any different to you, and then come back and tell me about it. And so Jane taught me that technique of problem solving. it actually opened up a whole new world for me at that stage about how I can work through things with kids. And the other name I wanted to talk about, which I struggled with, is Jenny, another welfare teacher who was way ahead of her time. You find out more things about her when you go to the funeral, unfortunately, but studying politics at Melbourne Uni, she told me she spent most of her time at uni drunk. And in her time at uni, she had 6 boys in 7 years. So I know all those guys. And I don't, and will confirm this. Look, I don't know what Jenny taught us, but we would spend hours and hours at her place in Main Ridge with the open fire going, talking about how we would like to change school, what we would do, how we would do it if we could start our own school. Fast forward 100 years, and I've done that twice, so I feel really privileged to be able to have done that. So just amazing people that I work with at Tremana, so I just wanted to acknowledge some of those people. Honestly, Jenny was the biggest influence on my life, but also David Barclay, who was the principal. Anyone who knows David Barclay, the staff all loved him. And what did he teach me? Make your decisions on the basis of what's happening for the student. Students come first, staff comes second. He said you've got to look after the staff. If you look after the staff, they'll pay you back 100 times. It's not really a contract of a payment, but to say yes to the staff. So that's always been my philosophy, and Rhonda comes along. Rhonda's the no, I'm the yes. But everyone loved David so much. I didn't want to be the vice principal, then became the assistant principal. I did that job at Tremana for 23 years, but I was AP for 10 years, and I didn't want to be the person who didn't get the job, because I'd seen that happen to a whole bunch of those old horrible people that I sort of half talked about. And they were bitter and angry because, well, in one case I jumped over 4 of them to get the job, and they let me know it for 10 years. You can't afford to live your life like that, can you? So I said, I've got to get out of here. So I applied for a few jobs. They were practice roles. I applied for a job at Pyramid Hill. I didn't even know where Pyramid Hill was, but I wanted to go. It's in the middle of nowhere. And there's a Pyramid Hill there out. And I went for the interview, and this wasn't in my notes, by the way. I blew a question on purpose because I didn't really, well, that's what I say to myself anyway. I didn't want that job, but I wanted to practice at doing the interviews. And then Caulfield Park came up, and I applied for Caulfield Park. Now, if I roll back again to Jenny and one of her friends, Judy Walsh, and Judy asked me one day along, when I was a teacher, what's the aspiration? What do you want to do? Do you want to be a principal? And I said, no. And then I said, well, I'd really like to be a principal of a small school. And so that was the aspiration, to be a principal of a small school. And then I turned it around at one stage. I'd like to be a principal of a school where I can wear jeans to school. So Caulfield Park was advertised. Steve was on the selection panel. Was Denise also? Denise, there you are. I think you were. And I applied for the job. I'm sure there was a huge field of about 4 people who wanted that. And I got that job. So honestly, that was my dream job. And to be principal of a little community school, an alternative school, that was perfect. I arrived there, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful now, but when I arrived, people didn't necessarily like what I had to say. And some of the teachers there knew what was happening at Caulfield Park, but I think they'd been disconnected from our system, and so they hadn't been in meetings with other teachers, and so they didn't know a lot of things that had happened. So Simon, this is when I was thinking this afternoon, our current network of schools and all of that that's happening is so important for us all not to become insular and just get locked into what we know and think what we know is all we know. So, how many people left? 3?
Well, on one day, after I'd had a conversation.
So we went through a review process. All I really wanted to say is Steve was beyond supportive to me for the whole time I was there, and so was Denise in the regional office. And I'm a new principal, and all of a sudden half the staff had walked out the door. That was pretty normal really, but it was hard. So I did that job for 3.5 years, and I honestly didn't think I was leaving, but then Carrum Downs was advertised, and I looked at it because I grew up in Carrum, and I thought, well, I sort of better go and have a look at this, and I applied for that job. I wish the old school council president was here, but Rhonda, as I walk, I said, Rhonda's not here. There are two Rhondas. She said, Rhonda said, oh, I forgot to invite her.
And now we all know.
But again, what an amazing opportunity to land at Carrum Downs and employ all these new people and do that, almost take the kids from year 7 through to year 12. Again, so privileged and so lucky to be able to do that. And on my list, I cut and pasted some of the things that we did at Carrum Downs. And my goal after leaving Caulfield Park, a little alternative school, was to make Carrum Downs as inclusive as I could be. And so, rattling things off like pastoral care and cross-faculty sub-schools and engaging curriculum, connect, team teaching, cultural crew. Teeny.
Still going, mate?
Of all the things in 45 years, I remember being on the steps of Parliament House and getting that award for you guys. Fabulous stuff. Wellbeing, learning support, literacy aids, restorative practice, which I'm not so sure about now, but peer support, tribes, lunchtime activities, parenting program, health week, breakfast program, hands-on learning, which I would never have got rid of, wider workforce reform. They were just amazing things that we were able to do. And most of you, a lot of you are from Carrum Downs, and a lot of you who are Oakwood School were from Carrum Downs. So, you know, we did great stuff, and then be asked to do Oakwood School is beyond amazing. And I had in my mind what that was going to be, and the first person, which Sandra's not here, but you know Sandra, I wanted to employ Sandra as the first person because what I knew that Sandra knew about learning that I didn't know, so I needed Sandra. So this, you know, the story goes, I had one cup of coffee with Sandra, and she said yes. And then I'm interviewing new kids, and I roped in Julie, and unfortunately Julie's not here. Julie is so sick with COVID. I spoke to her today. She's a bit chirpier, but her voice is terrible. She's been in bed for over a week now. And she's been really badly struck by it. And met Julie. Stole her. She was in charge of student wellbeing. And so I put that team together. And then Kira's here too. Kira was one of the first teachers we employed. And Kira, it's important because Kira had worked at family planning, but before that had been an autism coach living with families in country Victoria. So we put together my knowledge of whatever a school is, Sandra's knowledge of teaching and learning, Julie's knowledge of trauma-informed practice, and Kira's understanding of how we set the routines up for kids with autism, which turns out works for everybody. How could we not have an amazing place? And so Oakwood's been going 12 years, I guess now, and we have certainly hit a dip because of enrolments and COVID, but I think we have achieved so much, and in all those things I've talked about, I am so proud about what I've been able to do, but it's really what we've been able to do. And when I sort of think and reflect on Oakwood School, we are so lucky. The kids have never had any success with learning before, and we give them that, and how good does that feel? And then we set the environment up so they can be successful. We don't expect them to make it successful, we make it successful for them. And so, of all the good values that a teacher might have, I reckon we can live those at Oakwood School without compromise. Whereas in most places you are compromising, teachers are compromising themselves all over the place. Now, I'm actually looking at my notes now because I made a list of names of people I should not forget to thank. And of course, Murray here, so back to Carrum Downs for a second. The people from Dromana will know, some of you will know, when I advertised Murray's job, I was expecting somebody else was going to get that job.
Goes another line.
And that was hard at the time, but Murray was brilliant, and I've said publicly many times, I have never regretted that hard decision of employing someone I didn't really know over someone I thought I'd set up for the job. So Murray has been brilliant in all that time through Carrum Downs. A similar thing happened with Rhonda. I thought, I was trying to find, I needed a business manager, and I had been given this name of a lady who worked in the regional office, it might have even been her sister. And I met with her in Frankston for a coffee, and she said, oh, starting a new school, that'd be hard. Oh, and she kept going on and on and on about how hard it was.
Oh, not me.
And I decided, I am not going to have you working for me. What's the chance I want that?
Yeah.
And then it turned out, which unbeknownst to me, Rhonda knows a few people I know through David Barclay, probably my old principal, and Rhonda chose me as her next principal. He decided to apply for the job. So I owe both Mark and Rhonda like amazing debts, and thank you. I put Lorraine's name on here. Just a couple of you know Lorraine. Back to Carrum Downs again. Lorraine's not here, but canteen. There's some canteen people here, and I got so spoiled by the canteen making my lunch, and then making me lunch to take home for tea. So they were brilliant people, and Josie is a cleaner. And Josie loved the school so much, and like it's people like Josie. It's people like Josie who makes the job so great. So I was going to go and say people who have been supporters of Oakwood School. I think Jan left, but Jan's from the regional office, and I spoke to Jan before and thanked her for her amazing support in the background looking after Oakwood School. Simon also in the regional office. Our school councils, I've been absolutely lucky to have just amazing school councils back at Dromana, which I didn't set up, but at Caulfield and at Carrum Downs, and now the cream of the cream at Oakwood. And people again like Steph and Andrew who have no agenda besides helping us do a great job. And it is so much appreciated. And Ray is here as well. I was just going to finish up and say, gone too long? If I wanted to leave a message, it would be employ good people that you like hanging around with, because the kids are going to like it too. Invest in their training. Sandy would say hire for attitude and train for skill, or something like that. Make your decisions based on the interests of the kids. And one of my big bugbears is I always reckon, I remember at Dromana I was talking to this dad, and he said to me, I know you can't do that because my son's only 1 in 1,000. And I said, of course we're going to do that, because it's the right thing to do for your son. So that's my bugbear. I think we make decisions, this is what I say to the team, my leadership team, we make decisions in terms of the best interests of the kids sitting in front of us. We're not worried about what someone else's mum's going to think about it. We're going to suspend this kid because someone else's mum thinks we should. We're not going to do that. We're going to make decisions in the best interests of the kids. I only want to hang around with positive people, and this is my throwaway joke line. When I was first assistant principal, David Barclay went to the region for 6 months, so I was fresh in then, became acting principal at Dromana, and I went on this 5-day residential PD. It was Max Sawatsky, who was a bureaucrat from New South Wales, and Brian Caldwell. And Max said, Brian Caldwell, some of you know Brian Caldwell, so Brian Caldwell was a teacher, so he thinks you can change people. Brian, you can't. He said, if you've got negative people in your organisation, Brian thinks you can change them. I only want to hang around with positive people. And Max Sawatsky says, You have to cut them before they destroy your organisation. So I blame Max Watsky for that sort of attitude and my divorce. So, that was my finishing line. We're going to stop for a minute now. I'll just conclude by saying, look, all of you here have made it possible for me to work. Can you believe? Sorry, Liz, my twin sister, 67 tomorrow. It's ridiculous to be that old, but I'm sort of proud to be that old, so that's a good space to be in. I am looking forward to retirement. There's going to be a little bit of a break now. Thank you for everything you've done for all the schools, and thank you for your support. Thank you to people like Anne and Julie and Russell and perhaps a whole lot of other people who are really great long-term friends. We're going to have a break. We're going to come back for a couple more speeches, and then I'm going to respond at the end.